Hello there, lovely people. It's Sunday. I don't know if you can see what I'm holding in my hand, but it's a quintessential English picnic snack, the pork pie. That is what we are learning how to make this week. These things are incredible. They're beautiful, golden, have the most insane, crispy, crunchy crust, and they are filled with the most delicious filling. Classic pork, lots of herbs. Yeah. So if you want to know how to make these insanely delicious little things, then stick with me. Let's jump to the recipe and let's make these banging pork pies. All right, let's get into this, shall we? Here are all of our ingredients. We have got 500 grams of pork shoulder, 4 rashers of bacon, so like 100 grams of bacon. I've got some fresh sage leaves here. We've probably got about a tablespoon once they're going to be all chopped up and added. But you can put in, you know, whatever you like, thyme, rosemary, you know, whatever flavors you want to put in there, and whatever herbs you want to add in. The more herby, the better. I mean, it's really up to you. But I do also have some fennel seeds, so we're going to add some fennel seeds in there, and we'll just give them a light toast and a little crush. And then we've got our stuff to make our pastry. So we've got 500 grams of plain flour, 10 grams of salt, 200 mils of water, and 160 grams of lard. So the lard usually comes in a tub, might come in a stick, and it's usually like pork or beef. You just kind of want to avoid the ones maybe that are like lamb, because actually that's really strong. So beef or pork is better. And then just salt and pepper and a couple of eggs. All of this recipe is on my website, so head over there, you can have a look, and this is just going to be the practical of how we do it. So let's get into making these pork pies. So the very first thing we're going to do is chop up all of our interior. Now you can use pork mince if you want, but I would always say that if you're using pork mince, then you want to add some kind of like chunk to it. I mean, it just depends on the texture that you want on the inside. I just prefer mine a little bit chunkier, just so you kind of really feel like you're getting them bits of meat and it's just not mush of unidentified pork mince. So we'll take the 4 rashers of bacon, and these are great because, you know, they're smoked, so they've got a little bit of extra flavour, and they're also a bit fatty, so we'll just get them all chopped. And again, you can kind of leave this how you like. If you want it in strips, you can leave it in strips, but I'm going to kind of chunk it up again into little bits. So it's going to look something like that. So we'll just put that into the bowl. And then here I've got my bit of pork shoulder. Now this still has the really tough outer skin on, so we want to make sure that we take that off. But I bought it like this because what I really want is that good bit of fat that's underneath there. So that's that very outer bit of the skin which we really don't want. This also has a little bone in, so I'm just going to take that little bone out. And so now we've got that 500 grams of pork shoulder, and then what we're going to do again, we're just going to cut it up thin and into chunks, and then we'll add it to the bacon. And you want to make sure that you take your time when you do this. So like, for instance, these bits which are a bit fatter, of the fat on the end, I'm actually going to chunk them up really small. So them bits of fat are really quite tiny, because there's nothing worse than like a really big chunk of fat. I mean, obviously it's a pork pie, so you do get them, but when they're like this, they're hopefully going to break down a little bit when you when we cook it. And that's all the pork diced up. So as you can see, we've got some larger bits, some very small bits. You kind of just want a bit of a mixture. And then we're going to add that in with the bacon and give it just a bit of a mix around already. And you can start to sort of see here that it's, you know, yes, it's not mince, you know, it's not mince, it's kind of a chunky mixture, but that's just much nicer to have a bit of chunk in your pie. And you know, if you come across any like real sinew bits, just cut them out. You don't obviously want them in there because they're a bit tough. And now we're just going to take our fresh sage. Again, this is totally up to you, what you like. If you don't like sage, add thyme. If you don't like thyme, add rosemary. I mean, this is so versatile. You could put mustard seeds in there. You could put, like we're putting fennel seeds in. I mean, the possibilities are absolutely endless to what you can put in there. That's the tablespoon of sage chopped up, so we're just going to add that in too. And then we'll get rid of this board, wash our hands, and we're going to toast off the fennel seeds. Just going to take a good like heaped teaspoon of fennel seeds, and we're just going to toast them off, and then we'll just put them in the pestle and mortar and just give them a really light crush, just because you can start to smell all them smells coming out. But what you don't want to really do is bite into a massive great fennel seed when you're eating a pork pie. So you've got some little bits and some big bits and other bits of powder. So you're going to end up with something like that. And then that also is going into the meat, and we'll just stir it together a little bit so that they can start to infuse. And then the salt and the pepper we're not going to add until we've got our pie crust ready and they are slightly moulded, because if we add the salt, it's going to start to draw some of the moisture out. We want it to stay nice and juicy so that the pie is just delicious when it's done. So pop that to one side and we'll make the dough. Next, the dough. So this is what they call a hot water crust. So you make it with hot water, it's got hot fat in it, and that is what just creates this incredibly crisp dough when you bake it in the oven. So I've got my 500 grams of flour, and I'm going to add that to a slightly larger bowl so we've got something bigger to work with. And then I've got the 10 grams of salt, that's also going in there, and we'll just give that a really good stir so that the salt is all incorporated in the flour. And then here we have our water and our lard. So what I'm going to do is take it to the stove, we're going to bring the water up to the boil, and then we're going to turn it down until all the lard has melted. So it's quite a good thing if you chop up the pieces a little bit smaller so that they melt quicker. So we'll get that on and then we'll come back to this. Now we've got our flour here, and I've just beaten the two eggs which are going in it. So we're going to add that in, and while that's just cooling down a little bit, because we don't want to cook the egg obviously, we're just going to mix this into the flour so we start to get a little bit of a dough forming. Now of course, if you had a KitchenAid or a machine like that, you could do this with the paddle. So it would be a lot quicker and probably a lot easier, but I'm going to show you the way to do it by hand, just in case you don't have one of them machines at home. And then we're just going to slowly add this. I mean, it's had only a moment's cooling. You just want that fat to have stopped boiling. And we're just going to add it into this. So we'll start to work it. And that's it. Now it's all in there. We're going to tip it out. And we're just going to work it with our hands, just to get all of that flour incorporated. Oh, it's such a nice dough. To just get it all together. And we'll just knead it for 1 or 2 minutes so that all that flour and fat and water is all evenly distributed. And that is it. I'm just going to pop the dough on, and we're just going to give it a little flatten out, and we're just going to give it 5 minutes resting. We'll tidy up here, and then we can make our pies. Who would have thought making pork pies at home was actually so fast? So just while the pastry's in the freezer for the last 5 minutes, we're now gonna season the meat because we're nearly ready to use it. So we want to do some really, a good sort of 6 or 7 twists of a black pepper and 1.5 teaspoons of salt. you know, I've said it before and, you know, I'll say it again. You just always want to really make sure that when you're seasoning something that's going inside, that you do give it a good season, because there's just nothing worse than when you bite into it and it tastes of nothing. So we'll just pop that to one side to let it sit for just a minute, and then we're just going to roll out the pastry and we'll get these things in the oven. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to weigh out 4 balls at 150 grams, and then we're going to weigh out 4 balls at 40 grams. So we're going to get them all pre-weighed and then we can roll them. So just give it a little work. Oh my God, it just looks amazing. It's super soft. So 150. 150. I know it looks like it's really sticky on here, but once you actually work it, it really isn't sticky at all. 150, and then the last one. 150, and then we'll just do our 4 little balls of 40. And 40. And there is our little bit of leftover dough. So just in case we need it for anything, it's always nice to have a little bit extra. And now we're going to form these pies. So what we're going to do is we are going to have to work fast, because we don't want this pastry to dry out. And as soon as it starts to dry, that's when it becomes a little bit hard to work with. So flatten it out into a circle. Put a little bit of flour on here. We are going to use a cup because I don't have a dolly, and we're going to push it down. And we are going to hand form the edges of this pie. Take the glass out every now and again and reflour, because you do not want it to stick. And all you want to do is make them sides about 5 centimeters high and about 5 mil thick, and that's it. First one done. Flatten it out into a circle. Make sure you've got plenty on there. Push it down and squeeze it, and turn it at the same time. Take that out again. More flour, and then raise the sides. And you can just get in there with your hand if you need to. It's okay if there's a little bit over the top, because we're going to use our other bits as our lid. So one more time. And that's the beauty with a hand raised pie. It doesn't have to be perfect. You know, push it down and turn. Take this guy back out, make sure it's not stuck. Also, just make sure that it's as even as possible. And again, work it up the sides so you get a nice tight edge. And take that guy out. And you can always just pop it back in if you think it's a bit floppy, and you can reform it so it's nice and tight on the glass. Like that. And then the last one. And there we have our bases. So now we're going to fill them. So all of this is going to get divided between the 4. And we'll just gently pack that in so that it's nice and tight in the pie. We do end up with a little bit of slightly different shapes. This one, he's a little bit taller. This one, he's a little bit flatter and wider. But it really doesn't matter. That's the joy of something being handmade like this. You can do it the other way, in which is rolling out the circles and making them perfect, but I don't really like them that way. So now we're just going to make the tops. And like I said, this is where you have to work fast with this dough, because already this is much colder than it was, which means it's becoming a bit tougher and is not as pliable. So just make them into little circles with your hand so that they're going to fit the top of the pie. So we've got our little lids there, and what we want to do is with some water go around the edge, and we're going to stick it to the edge of the other pie. And the water will be the adhesive to make it stick, and then once it's on, we can just crimp them to make them look super cute. So again, just wet the rim, and then you just got to stick it. It's kind of a bit like pottery with your clay, you know? You just need to stick it to your edge, but you want to make sure that there are no holes, because otherwise then the juices can come out and run down the side of your pie and potentially burning it. So just make sure that the edges are all firmly closed. And if you do feel that like you had too much excess, well then you can just cut a bit off. But I don't know about you, but I think the pastry is the best bit of a pork pie. But maybe that's just me. Pinch it all together. And give them a crimp. And there they all are, done, completed. The only other thing that we need to do is make an air hole in the top. So with your knife, make a little hole so that the air can get out. And then all I've got here is one egg, and we're just gonna egg wash these generously. And then this is also a good opportunity to see if there are any little holes. You want to wash all of the edges, because the egg wash is just going to make them glisten. So make sure you get it absolutely everywhere. Around the outsides. I've turned the oven on to 190 to preheat, and then these are going in. And at 35 minutes, we're going to put a probe in, and we're going to have a look at that internal temperature. We need it to be around 70 degrees Fahrenheit, 70 degrees. But if they're not quite there yet, then we can leave them in for a little bit longer, and we'll have a look at them in another 10 minutes or so. So we'll put these in, and we'll check back in 35 minutes. And out they've come, our beautiful pork pies. As you saw there, I put the thermometer in, and they need to be above 70°C. They were 72, some of them were 80, so they're definitely cooked in the middle, which is fantastic. And now we just need to let them cool. So I'll come back to these in an hour or so, and we're going to cut one open. I cannot wait to tuck into these. We are going to cut one open and see what they're like in the middle. Oh my God, that crust. Oh my God, I mean, look at that meat. It's still pink, it's delicious, it's still dripping. I mean, you can fill these with jelly if you wish, but oh my God. Oh. That is so good. That meat is still juicy and tender in the middle. It's not like mush. I don't know if you can see here. It is a little underbaked, the crust, but I think this might have been one of my first ones where perhaps I didn't actually squash it quite low enough, but that's okay. Honestly, I absolutely love a pork pie. And what's amazing about these is you can put them in the fridge and they'll be absolutely fine for a few days. So you can take them to work as a great snack. Let me just have another little bit. And they're gonna be absolutely amazing once they've set in the fridge too. But that filling is delicious. It's salty, it's herby, it's a bit smoky from the bacon. It's all absolutely amazing. Oh, honestly, this on a plate with some cheese and a ploughman's, next level. Oh my God, just like so yum. So yum. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like and subscribe button. That way you will just never miss out on anything else coming out from the Dishes with Del kitchen. And you can learn how to make some absolute bangers like this. Oh my God, honestly, it's too good. But thanks again for joining me. And I'll see you guys sometime soon. Honestly. Warm, amazing, fridge cold, insane. So I'm gonna finish eating this and I'll catch you guys next week. See ya.